Shalom everyone and welcome back to the channel. I pray you are doing well. Thank you for tuning in for another video. Today's topic will be going over interracial relationships, but in particular divesting. We'll be answering this question of why does God punish black women so harshly for divesting? And the reason why that we'll be going over this is because of the Sade Robinson case. Sade Robinson, as you can see on the screen, she was a young black girl who's only 19 years old, went out on a date, a first date that she was so excited for, with this 33-year-old grown man on the screen that you can see. 33 years old, so that's a 14-year difference, right? And she was only 19 years old, still a teenager, still a child biblically. She was still a child because she was not 20 years old. And her severed leg was found the following day of their date on the shore of Lake Michigan by some people walking by. Now, before I get into the whole topic of discussion, let me read to you the definition of a divester. Take a look on the screen. A very strange group of women who claim to be all about black female empowerment, yet instead waste all their time arguing and posting about black men and non-black people on social media, acting chummy with white supremacists and pedestalizing and obsessing over non-black males, whilst calling black women who don't agree with them overweight, unpicked mammies. They are just as male identified as the black women they are dragging, yet they don't even realize it. This definition here of divester is very accurate to what these black women are about. They are headstrong on pushing their propaganda of interracial relationships, of pushing down the black man and just insulting black women that don't agree with them, or anyone that doesn't agree with them, to be honest. And they can influence a lot of young people to believe that the grass is greener on the other side. So now we're going to go over the timeline of what happened to her and what we're aware of what happened to Sade. So this is an article by The Independent, and they go over the timeline of what happened to her. So we'll read a bit of it. A college student told friends she was excited for a first date. Part of her dismembered body was found on a beach a day later. So there she is, and there is her killer. Now, the timeline shows that surveillance footage from Twisted Fisherman had shown the pair meeting at around 5:20 p.m. where they stayed until 6:24 p.m. Anderson had told the bartender that the meeting had been a first date. According to police, an employee of the building where Robinson lived said she would frequently see and speak with the victim, who told her that she had been excited for the date. So she was even telling a woman that works at the building, that she was really excited to go on this date with this guy. So right now, next paragraph says, from 6:29 to 6:35 p.m. Robinson traveled to the area of Dukes on Water, where she appeared to have stayed for around 2 hours before heading to an address on South Oklahoma Avenue, later determined to be Anderson's. So she was with this guy from 5:20 p.m. till 2 hours later. So wait, they met up in the restaurant for an hour and 4 minutes. Then 2 hours later, right, they were together for 2 hours, and then by that point she had decided that she's going home with this man. That is so dangerous. Like, you don't know strangers that you're speaking to online, and most of the time people are lying about who they really are. Most people's personalities, like, they show after a few months. You can't really get to know someone after just a few hours. The scripture even tells us not to be hasty to prove a friend. So yeah, this was very dangerous what she did, and it's so sad to see like what's happened to her now. What should we read next? So it says, location data appeared to show that Robinson had stayed at the address for almost 3.5 hours before the device was moved north to an area of Kern Park by part of the Milwaukee River around 1 a.m. And then now, like from the point that she entered his house, we're not going to know what happened to her, so we can only speculate what went down. But we'll see with the trial what information actually comes out. If he confesses to anything, that we won't know. Now it says here, around 3 hours later at 7:32 a.m., members of the Milwaukee Fire Department responded to a fire in the west part of Milwaukee near to Washington Park. Firefighters found the vehicle, a 2020 Honda Civic, had sustained extreme fire damage. So her car was set on fire, and then here it says a check of the registration revealed the car had belonged to Robinson. So it all went down so quickly for her. In like 12 hours, she was no longer with us. And you can't trust strangers online. Like, parents need to be warning their children that, listen, if you're meeting someone online, especially if you're going outside of your race and you're dating someone that is like the complete opposite, you need to be aware that these people may not actually like you the way that you think they do, because there's a lot of like secret hatred that certain nationalities will have for Black people. And you can't be naive to think, well, if they're interested to go on a date with you, that means they must actually respect you and respect your people. Not at all. And it's just sad to see the outcome of it all, that she had to suffer all of this when potentially she could have been taught. She was very misled, because at 19 years old, that's a very young age, very influential age to have gone through this. So yeah, it's just really sad. One thing about this case that is so sad is to think potentially that her parents did not warn her about dating outside of her race. Now, as a Black person, whether you're from America, the Caribbean, you live in the UK, living in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, you name it. If you're a Black person living in one of these countries, either you have been enslaved by the people you are living in, or you have been colonized and enslaved by them. So it's always one or the other. And it's sad to think that parents these days aren't teaching their children that this is the history between our people and the people of the land that we are living in. If you choose to betray your people and date outside of your race, you need to understand that this is their history. You need to understand their history, your history, and see, is this a wise decision to go forward with? Now, I've got a question for my Black sisters. Do you really think, honestly, do you think in 100 years' time that Palestinian women will be on social media saying things like, you Palestinian women need to get over yourselves, you need to stop trying to be with a Palestinian man, you need to get with an Israeli, get with any other nation but your own people, because there's no point waiting around, you're limiting your options? Do you really think that they will say anything like that? Or for instance, do you think if they speak out against why their people shouldn't mix with the Israelis, do you think that they will be condemned for that? Do you think that their own people will condemn them for speaking up why they shouldn't mix with Israelis? That's just a question. I think we know the answer is that no, that is no. They wouldn't be doing that, and nobody's going to come against them for spreading their views on why they shouldn't mix with other people. But with Black people, the moment that we say we should stick with our own people, there's conflict. Now let's read the book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verses 12 and 13. Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Now therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people in not taking a wife of them. For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and lewdness and decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine. So here in the book of Tobit, he's giving his son a lot of wisdom. He's passing on gems and he's warning him as well. He's telling him in verse 12, beware of whoredom. Then he proceeds to say, take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, which means take a wife of your own people. Don't take a strange woman. Don't take a foreigner, someone that is not of the nation of Israel. And then he proceeds to say that they are the descendants of Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And remember that from the beginning, our black forefathers had married wives of their own people. Their own kindred means their own people, and they were blessed in their children. Now in verse 13 it says that love thy brethren and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, in not taking a wife of them, which basically means love your own people and don't hate them by taking a wife of another nation. This passage right here is summing up what black parents need to be telling their children. They need to be warning them of whoredom. They need to be telling them, listen, love your own people and don't date outside of your race. Do not marry these other nations of people. You need to marry your own. Leviticus 19 and 18 says, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. Now, just because you may have had a bad experience with your own people, does not mean that all of your people are bad just because you had a bad experience. And then you're gonna go out there and spreading all these lies about how black men are no good, how we should go with other nationalities just because of an experience that you had or experiences that you've had. Now, the scripture says that a wicked woman is given to a wicked man. You can't be complaining about what certain men have done to you when you yourself are not living a righteous life. Now take a look at this foolishness that I saw online. This woman here said, my dream has always been to marry a white man. Every woman wanted this white man, but he chose me. I'm so excited. Marrying a dark person has always been my worst fears. So many girls are crying and praying for this opportunity just to get what I have. It's not easy to have a white man as a husband. Every girl's dream right now is to be like me. I love my husband so much and I'll always be by his side. Gosh, this is so cringe. Like, how desperate are you to post this online as well? And this is definitely not every girl's dream, so she needs to keep that to herself. But this is the mindset that a lot of our people have. Now, they may not say it as openly as she is saying it, but a lot of people have this mindset. And they don't realize that this is actually self-hatred. Like, as if she's saying marrying a dark person has always been her worst fears. That's why in the book of Tobit it's saying, don't hate your people by trying to be with these other nations. It could not get clearer than this. Now take a look on the screen and see this sign that our sister is holding up. Like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. It says, I know I'm not cotton, but will you pick me for prom? So she's probably like 17 or 18 since she's going to prom, and she's going to be going with this white guy who's got his arm around her, and he even made the effort of adding the cotton balls on the sign. Oh my goodness, embarrassing. There's not much that you can say about this. And why is she there taking the picture, smiling? She looks so excited, probably as excited as Sade was, you know, because nobody's really warning these girls, like, you shouldn't be dating outside of your race. You shouldn't be entertaining these people because you think that they like you, but secretly, deep down, they still don't like you, and you can still be racist and date someone and date a black person. I don't think our sisters realize that. Take a look at this video. This is a great example of why you need to understand as a black woman that just because someone of a different race has an interest in you, that does not mean that they actually sincerely like you or have any sort of respect of you or your people. Take a look at this.
Everybody say hi to Jacob. Now, Jacob is a white man who likes to hang out with a lot of black people. A lot, and a lot of black people. Now, Aaron, what would be your problem with this white man hanging out with a lot of black people? It's not as if white people could be racist if they have black friends, right? Let's quote Jacob, shall we? I'm glad your ancestors were with me. And it's you black, but I did you a favor, Jacob, because I went through your entire profile, before you deleted it, and introduced myself to every single one of your black friends. Every single one. And I just let them know what you had to say about them, Jacob. I don't think they were very pleased for what I had to tell them. And you know what really pissed me off the most about you, Jacob? Being in your comments, showing love to these black men who showed you love in the first place, and you just smile in their face without showing them who you really are. But here's the beautiful thing about the internet. I just gotta take a little bit of information, find out who the owner is, aka your daddy, find out more information, which I can't even put out, but say hello to your mama and everybody else, which leads me to your LinkedIn. I see that you work at JP Morgan Chase. And see, the thing about JP Morgan is they're about equal opportunity and anti-discrimination.
You get where this is going, right? He just goes further and digs further, and then he gets reported. He reports him to his workplace, and fair enough, he should do that. Why would he get away with saying something as disgraceful as what he said? Do you know how harsh that is? The fact that he has all these black friends, and yet he said that. Did you see the comment that he put? Let's go back to that comment, because that was insane. Like, he even ended on saying, "You black Negro." Like, he said he's glad that, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to read that, but it's just insane to think like somebody that is white, that has all these black friends, would be racist. But this is not a surprise. This shouldn't be a surprise to you either. Let me take you to the book of Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus, and we'll go in the chapter 8. And this whole chapter is given wisdom about common sense. And in the Good News translation, we'll read verse 16, which says, "You should not get into an argument with anyone who has a hot temper, or go someplace where the two of you will be alone. Violence means nothing to such a person, and he will attack you when there is no one to help you." The reason why I brought up that scripture is because our people need to understand, as Israelites, now I'm speaking to black people, you don't know that many Gentiles, as in non-Israelites, have a lot of secret, repressed hatred for you and your people. People don't realize that. Like, once you get into a point where like they feel a bit more comfortable around you, they might slip up and make some sort of like low-key racist or patronizing remarks to you. They might be passive aggressive. You might not even realize why. They might say, "Well, you're okay, but I don't like the rest of black people," like, things like that. And that's not appropriate. For those who aren't aware, they shouldn't be saying stuff like that around you. But if only you knew the things that they were saying behind your back, I doubt that you'd be promoting divesting. I highly doubt it. But then again, I think knowing our people, there'll always be those that are diehard divestors, and it's a shame. But now what they're doing is they're setting other people up for failure, and that's not good. And for those who aren't aware, for instance, there was this case of this black girl who went on a slumber party to her white friend's house. She was like the only black person. Like, the picture looked like Candace Owens' wedding picture. Like, literally, she's the only black person there, only black girl. Her name was, what was her name? Tamla Horsford. I think that was her name, Tamla Horsford. And they ruled that as an accident. So she would have thought that all of these girls are her friends and her day ones or whatever, but little did she know, she went into a place where it was just them, no one else could save her, and she also ended up killed as well. So you have to be very careful being alone and trusting these people so much with your life, because you don't want to end up like Sade. You don't want to end up like Tamna. You don't want that to happen to you or the people that you care about. Next, we'll read in the book of Sirach again, but this time chapter 12, and we'll read verses 10 to 12. Never trust an enemy. His wickedness is destructive as rust. Watch out and be on guard against him. Even if he acts ever so humble, he is like a metal mirror that rusts away if you don't keep it polished. This is very deep. Verse 12 says, seat an enemy at your right hand, and the next thing you know, he'll be trying to get your own place of honor. Put him next to you and he will overthrow you. Then you will realize the truth of my words and be stung with regret when you remember them. This passage here is so crucial for our people to understand. Is literally telling us to never trust an enemy. Not trust an enemy sometimes. It's literally saying never trust an enemy. And the worst thing to do is put them in a right hand position, as in like they're close to you, they've got insight, going on a date, trying to be in a relationship with them, as in like moving towards marriage or something like that. That makes no sense. Why would you do that? Would you marry someone you don't like? Why would you marry someone that despises as a whole their people despise your people? And people say, oh, well, that's not true. You know, that person, they're actually nice. Well, it doesn't matter about that specific person. It's about their people. We already went over previously in the book of Tobit chapter 4 that you're not supposed to despise your people by marrying another nation. So it's the same thing here. It's giving you all of the warnings of why you shouldn't be doing these things, why we shouldn't be in interracial relationships, why we shouldn't trust our enemies. And we're going to go over now the consequences of if we do these things, and answering that question of why does God punish Black people so harshly, in particular Black women so harshly for divesting. Now we'll go over Joshua chapter 23 and we'll read verses 11 to 13. So it says, be careful then to love the Lord your God. If you are disloyal and join with the nations that are still left among you and intermarry with them, you may be sure that the Lord your God will no longer drive these nations out as you advance. Rather, they will be dangerous for you as a trap or a pit, and as a painful whip on your back or thorns in your eyes. And this will last until none of you are left in this good land which the Lord has given you. I mean, in the book of Joshua, like, he gave us the warning. He told us, listen, love the Lord your God, love the Most High. And if you want to be disloyal and go with all these other nations that are around us, you want to do interracial, okay, but just know that it's going to be dangerous, it's going to be a trap, and it's going to be painful. And we don't seem to learn this lesson that our ancestors have been going through. You know, it even said, like, this is hundreds of years ago, and this is still happening to this day. Each time we want to do what we want to do, instead of following the Most High, instead of following the commandments that He has given us for a reason to live a set apart life, we want to be disloyal. We want to hate our own people and lift up other nations around us and go with them, and then we suffer the harsh consequences of it. Now we're going to read the book of Nehemiah chapter 13, and we're going to be reading verses 23 to 27. And it says here, in those days I also saw Jews who had married women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab, and half of their children spoke the language of Ashdod but could not speak the language of Judah, but spoke according to the language of one or of the other people. So I contended with them and cursed them and struck some of them and pulled out their hair and made them swear by God, saying, you shall not give your daughters as wives to their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons or yourselves. Verse 26, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over Israel. Nevertheless, pagan women caused him to sin. Should we then hear of your doing all this great evil, transgressing against our God by marrying pagan women? When I see this scripture, I see the same thing that happened in the time of Nehemiah, when the children could not speak the language of the Jews. They couldn't speak their own language. And the same thing happens today. When, for instance, if you get a Jamaican marrying a Portuguese person, Haitian marrying Spanish, Congolese marrying Japanese, or Ghanaian marrying a Chinese person, they're not going to speak the language of their people. They're going to end up being somewhere in between. They may not even know like their culture to the full extent. They might not have the same beliefs. And it's just bringing the confusion that the Most High did not want to begin with. He didn't want us to marry these other nations for us to follow their traditions instead of being set apart and being with our own people, showing our own people love and doing what the Most High said to do in terms of marrying our own people. With all that being said, what's happened to Sade Robinson is so tragic, and I really feel for this family. Please, if you're listening to this, please pray for her family and her loved ones, because imagine this is how they're going to remember their daughter or their sister. It's so traumatic. The amount of trauma that they must be feeling right now, it must be like living in an actual nightmare. And this is why we have to warn one another to be careful and to not fall into the sin and to the traps of going outside of your nation to be with these Gentiles. Because one thing that I've noticed is that there seem to be other similar cases going on of like black women going on dates with, in this case particular, I would say with white men, and then something happens and they are never seen again, or they end up dead, or whatever the case is. There seems to be something going on here, but they keep trying to make it seem like this is just a unrelated singular case, like this is not like a serial killer kind of thing going on. But bear in mind, for those that aren't aware of the rest of the case, they found in this man's basement a the rest dungeon, and there was red bodily fluids, should I say, smeared on the walls, smeared everywhere. And when they tested this, it didn't even match Sade's, which means this man has been taking people's lives before he even took Sade's life. So it's really scary out here. It's very dangerous. If you're trusting these Gentiles, Scripture says never trust an enemy. Why would you trust the same people that rule over you? Why would you do that? Please share this message. This is a message of love and great warning to our sisters out there, because there's a lot of false information and propaganda of saying that the grass is greener on the other side with the Gentiles. And we've been warned that this is not true. We've been warned of the consequences of us seeking on what's on the other side of the fence. We're supposed to stay with our own people and show love to our people. Don't hate your own people is what the scriptures has told us. We know this now. And in Ezekiel 3:18, it says that you need to warn your people. If you see someone is wicked and they're doing something and you think that they're going to die from this thing because of their actions, that is going to cause them death, and they actually do die, and you haven't warned them, then the Most High is going to require that blood on your hands as well, because you've not spread that message to tell them, listen, what you're doing is going to cause you death. It's going to cause you harm's way. So we must warn one another of this transgression of intermarrying with the Gentiles. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. If you found it edifying, please make sure to share it with others, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Yah willing, I will catch you very soon in the next video. Yah bless.